Pondering God, Chapter 42, Desperately Seeking Salvation. I was reading in Mark chapter 1 an account of a healing that Jesus performed. Jesus performed numerous healings. The gospel accounts are full of them. And maybe because of their voluminous nature, they fail to register in my heart the way they were intended. This account was about a leper, and what stood out was his approach to Jesus. Mark chapter 1 verse 40 says, "And a leper came to him, beseeching him, and falling on his knees before him, and saying to him, 'If you are willing, you can make me clean.'" Compared to our time, leprosy was a cross between AIDS and cancer. It was incurable and made the individual unclean. The rest of society shunned a person with leprosy and required them to announce themselves as they approached by crying out, "Unclean, unclean," as a warning to others. A few verses later in Mark, there's another account of someone being healed by Jesus. This time it's a paralytic on a stretcher. Jesus was in a house teaching, and because of the crowd, the four companions of the paralytic climbed up on the roof of the house and removed part of the roof, and then lowered the man down to be seen by Jesus. These men, as with the leper, were very determined. These two accounts made me think of one more that has always struck me as very poignant. In Mark chapter 5, there's a story of the woman who had suffered with a hemorrhage for 12 years. 12 years. She had spent much money trying to be cured at the hands of numerous physicians, but instead had grown worse. Being very determined, like the two previous examples, as recorded in Mark chapter 5, verses 27 and 28, the woman, after hearing about Jesus, came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak, for she thought, "If I just touch his garments, I shall get well." What do these three incidents have in common? Of course, all of them show the healing power of Jesus, but there's something else. There's one other story in Mark that demonstrates what I see as a common thread in all the others. In chapter 6 is the story of Jesus and the disciples coming to shore in Gennesaret. Upon his arrival, the people recognized him, as recorded in Mark chapter 6, verses 55 and 56, ran about that whole country and began to carry about on their pallets those who were sick, to the place they heard he was. Wherever he entered villages or cities or countryside, they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and entreating him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak. As many as touched it were being cured. In each of these scenarios, there is an element of desperation on the part of the sick. These people were desperate for healing. In that day and age, most diseases went uncured. Yes, our technology has progressed enough that many diseases and sicknesses that once were incurable are now cured as a matter of fact. I think of Dad and the quadruple bypass surgery and numerous other treatments that 50 years earlier would not have been available, would have likely led to a much earlier death. And yet, there are still diseases and sicknesses today that can't be cured and create in those who have them a desperation to be healed. From time to time, I hear of people who mortgage their homes and spend their life savings on that unproven miracle cure that hope upon hope will make them well. Wouldn't any of us do all that we could to save a loved one? In the account I mentioned earlier of the paralytic, Jesus responded to him in an odd way. He said to the paralytic, "My son, your sins are forgiven." Did Jesus not recognize the man's paralysis? Was he just confused for a moment? No, Jesus was making a point to all those gathered around that not only could he heal their physical needs, but that he also had the authority to heal their spiritual needs. He was pointing out the sickness that was even greater than the man's paralysis. Jesus healed many people in his brief time on earth, to demonstrate his power and authority, and because he was compassionate and merciful. But the physical healings were designed to tell a bigger story. He didn't come to this earth to heal our physical illnesses, but to heal our spiritual sickness. All of us are terminally ill. There was a point in my life a few years back when I too was desperate for healing. I wasn't sick in the physical sense, but my sin and guilt had become overwhelming, and I was desperate for someone to cure me. Like all these examples given, I had heard about Jesus and was convinced that he could heal me. And like the other examples, he did heal me. In Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5, it says this about the Messiah: "But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed." When we have a physical ailment, we grow desperate for healing, but this kind of healing is only temporary. Like Dad, we can remain alive for a few more years, but eventually we must die. Our hearts naturally go out to those around us who are physically ill, but there's a much deeper need that we all have that often goes unspoken and untreated. I wonder how many today even recognize their spiritual illness. Or do too many people walk around as living corpses, not even knowing of the disease that will surely overtake them? The disease of sin has only one cure. Do you know of anyone desperately seeking salvation? If you do, point them to the one who specializes in curing the disease that is common to us all. Jesus can heal them, not for the short term, but eternally.